Hey everybody, this is Jack Hammer of the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, and welcome, as always, on Thursday night to the Hammer and Nail Show. Look at that! I screwed up our logo, our overlay, and everything, Jessie. Jessie, I'm once again I'm Jack Hammer of the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, and like always on Thursday nights, I've got Jessie Naylor over here making the other half of the Hammer and Nail Show, making it the right. How you doing, Jessie?
I'm doing good. Listen, it's been like 3 weeks, Jack. This is a little foreign territory for us, but I'm happy to be back doing this show with you. It has been way too long.
Yeah, it definitely has been, and looking forward to it, especially with the draft coming up. We kind of missed the last week of before the draft, and then we missed, obviously, well, there was a whole lot going on last Thursday night, at least 49ers related, right? Because the 49ers weren't picking a week ago tonight. But yeah, so it's going to be fun to recap the draft with you and kind of get your thoughts, because we haven't talked about it at all, other than maybe a tweet at each other here or there, but not even that really there either. Before we get started really quick, just wanted to shout out Raphael 5629er says, "What up, Jack, Jessie, and everyone?" Raphael's a good guy; he's always in here.
Yeah, he is.
Brant as well says, "What's up, Raphael 5629ers?" He sent it right back at him. We got Texas Niner in here saying,
Hey.
"Hammer and Nails." He's ready to go. And Tom Bragg's in here as well. Hey, Jack and Jessie, great to see you guys. Great to see you too, Tom. So let's just get right into it. The draft was the 49ers, like we said, they didn't really have anything going on for the last Thursday, but they really picked up on Friday and Saturday. Deebo Samuel still with the 49ers for now. They didn't trade him. That was kind of the big news on Thursday night. But before we get to Deebo, what were your thoughts on the draft? And let's also throw in those undrafted free agent signings, because those were important as well.
Yeah, well, they are very important, and it's funny how the undrafted free agent signings really change the overall thoughts of the draft. For me, anyways, I looked at it and I look at the draft by itself, and I'm like, okay, maybe we're in the C range as far as grades. But when you had that undrafted free agency, I really feel like it was a big, big boost. And I saw the jokes on a lot of posts like, hey, 49er fans are liking the 8th round picks more than they're liking 1 through 7. And it's kind of true. There was some really good undrafted free agents. It's funny because I've looked at the 49ers last 2 drafts, and interestingly enough, 13 of their 17 picks have either been quarterback, running back, cornerback, or offensive line, but no centers. So a little bit of a weird trend there. I don't know if it's best player available or what they're doing, but overall, there were a couple surprises here and there, and we'll talk about some of our favorite picks and our least favorite picks and whatnot. But the draft itself, decent, right? I don't think it was special by any means. I didn't leave it going, oh man, we got some major, major players here. But I did leave it saying, I think there's some guys that can certainly contribute, and possibly early on.
Yeah, I left the draft I felt pretty good about it, looking at what they did. I thought they did a good job of addressing their needs. I was surprised by a little bit of what they did in the beginning, with going with the defensive lineman first, going with the edge pass rusher. But then stepping back and kind of taking a look at that, later on that day and the next day, as I was getting ready to put together like my overall review of the draft, it started to make a little bit more sense to me as to why you would go with the defensive lineman at that point. And for the most part, with 8 of their 9 draft picks, I could understand the picks, even the 9th one, the one that I don't really care for all that much. I can understand why they went at that position and so on. I felt like they got guys that are going to help them out down the road, very similar to what they did last year. I think there's a couple of guys that'll help them out this year, but I think the others are going to be guys that are most likely going to be 2023, 2024, depth pieces, or maybe even starters.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Croc shed some light on the corner from Penn State. A lot of people are starting to really, really like him based off of what Croc put out there. And, I think the other thing, though, too, is it's tough, right? Because you have your initial thoughts. Eventually, I'll go back and I'll be able to watch film on everybody. This week, I did it on the running back, Ty Davis Price. But overall, like I said, it was a good draft. If you look at the 49ers' first 3 drafts, they were able to pull a first-team All-Pro out of each of those drafts. And in 2019, they were able to pull 2 of them. I just look at last year's draft and this year's draft and even the year before, really, and I don't know who really can be a first team all pro caliber. I mean, unless Lance is as good as I think he can be. Outside of that, there's really not anybody for 3 straight drafts. So good players, right? Players that can contribute. And it's not all about getting, first team all pros every year, but when you do it for 3 years in a row and then you don't do it at all for 3 years, it's just interesting to kind of break it down that way.
Yeah, I think if you want to get into that kind of a conversation, I think you need to start looking at some of the other teams around the league and like go back to the 2019 draft where they did get
Mhm.
2 in that draft because they got Bosa and Deebo Samuel there. And look at what the 49ers have from that 2019 draft and compare that to a team like, say, the Houston Texans or some of these other teams. Don't even worry necessarily even about the guys that are all pros. Forget about that for a second. Just look at how many of the guys from the 2019 draft have actually been are still with the 49ers and are still considered productive members of the team. I saw a tweet, from a Houston person a couple of days ago on that, and it got me thinking about it. And you start going back and you look at the drafts from the 49ers from 2019 on, and it's a pretty solid as far as the contributions that they've gotten from those players. So in this draft, like you said, I don't know if there's a guy that's going to be an all-pro. I think a guy like Drake Jackson, if he is as advertised, what they're going to ask him to do with who they have coaching up that position, I mean, I think he could be a special player. And you mentioned the Tariq Castro-Fields pick at 221. That's just a great value pick for the 49ers. That I don't even know if they wanted, if they were necessarily looking to go cornerback, but to have a player of his skill set sitting there at that late in the draft, that's a really nice pickup for a guy who, if you look at his what is it, relative athletic score, I think it's called, it's 9.75 out of 10. It's one of the highest it's ever been graded out of a corner in the history or in the last, since 1985, I think it is, or something like that. And it's a really good pick. And then one thing that I will say on that one, I haven't seen Crocker's breakdowns. I did see one tweet on it real quick today, but just reading the guy's scouting report and watching a little bit of him, he's a guy that has all the skills, all the tools. I don't know why he fell other than injuries and maybe a little bit of lack of productivity in terms of turnovers.
Yeah, I mean, I think people will get enamored with turnovers for sure, but yeah, his RAS was certainly way way up there. And believe it or not, he might not even be my most favorite late draft pick for the 49ers. And so that's what's interesting is the 49ers do this. They find a way to get good contributors late, which is something that they've become accustomed to, really. And I do agree. I think they did it again this year.
Okay, so let's do this. Instead of going, you might have one. Maybe the guy that's late is your favorite, but who was your overall? What was your number one pick, or the guy that you were most excited to see with the 49ers?
Oh gosh. I mean, the most excited would have been Drake, right? I just think that kid is really, really good. And for as far as he fell, I just think that that's an absolute steal. But the guy that I'm starting to fall in love with after the draft, that is, so again, in the moment, not my favorite, but the guy that I'm just really starting to dig a lot is Womack. I really think that depending on what the 49ers want to do at corner, if they want to put Emmanuel Mosley in nickel or Verrett or something crazy like that, something that we're not necessarily thinking of, that's one thing. But if they're looking for a true nickel and they're going to have a competition between Darquez Denard, Lenore, and Womack, Womack ran 4.3s, 5'9", around 189 pounds. He's perfect for that role. 17 pass breakups. He led the MAC 3 years in a row in pass breakups. I think he could be a steal late. And again, Castro-Fields as well. But I really think Womack, out of the guys that they got late, is the one that I'm just really enamored with right now.
Yeah, Womack's going to be, I think, a little bit. That's an interesting one because, like you said, he has a lot of pass breakups. I think he had 39 over his career at Toledo. It was a school record. So he had a lot of that. His scouting report says he's a guy that's good with his hands and can run with them. he's good with the jam at the line of scrimmage, and then he can turn and run with these guys. And so that's pretty good. The only part that stinks for me when I try to find him is that I can't find any regular tape of him. At least all 22 that I have doesn't have him in there. Very much Toledo defense. So that's the only thing that stinks about that one right now. But I do like that player. The Drake Jackson pick, obviously. Danny Gray, really, to me, is an interesting pick. I think he's going to continue to grow. I don't think he's ready totally to be. I think he's going to take some time. He only played, we talk about Trey Lance, right? Trey Lance only played 17 games. Okay. Danny Gray only played 18 in 2 years. He was there for 2 years, but only played 18 games. I know he was a senior, but he was a JUCO transfer. So he's played a bunch of football, but not necessarily at the highest of levels. Like I said, 18 games, put up good numbers at SMU. He's going to be an interesting one to watch. I think the one thing that I took away from like the Gray pick was when it was asked to Shanahan and Lynch, and I think it might have been Lynch who was talking about how it's going to be hard for Trey Lance to overthrow this guy. So, this offense is going to change, I think, this year in terms of the ball going down the field, and it's going to be fun to watch. I think you're going to see some more explosive. I think the Foreigners what you're going to see is they're going to they've kind of relied on the running game to bring the explosiveness out of it with the underneath run after catch, and now you're going to see the explosiveness is going to be expected to come from the quarterback's right arm. So it's going to be an interesting one to watch.
Yeah, it's definitely going to change. There's no doubt about that. And I am excited for it. In fact, you and I were talking before we got on the show, and we were just talking about how ready we are for actual football season. And it's going to be interesting to see all the minor tweaks and changes that have happened with this team.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm about ready to lose it with some of the it's funny, right? You go through last year, and I'm saying, Jimmy Garoppolo is the right guy. Just let it roll out. Let Trey Lance sit this year, and he's going to come in. And everybody's telling me I'm a hater, and I'm just so sick and tired of hearing the stuff that you hear about Trey Lance. And we're going to get to that in a little bit, but I'm really sick and tired of it because if you're one of those people that's out there like a former scout or something like that who has watched this kid play, and you're sitting there still saying that this guy doesn't. I mean, come on, man. What have you watched? Or how about you listen to the people that actually watched them in practice all year long, or the reporters that were on site during training camp who watched them for 30 something practices full through full practices. So of course we don't know everything because we weren't there during the regular season, but this guy's gonna be ready to go. All I had to do is watch what he did in week 17 against Houston. But we'll get there.
Right.
Exactly. I'm jumping the gun.
Yeah, the other one, Jeez, come on, Jack.
I know premature excitement over here when it comes to Trey Lance. But the other one that I really liked, and we're not going to probably see him this year, though, is I really like that Kalia Davis pick in the 6th round at 220. That's one that, just right away saw him just on the film of what we saw in the draft footage. It's like, ooh, that guy gets off the ball quick. And then you start looking, and this guy was a linebacker in high school. It's just a stud linebacker, and he's only 300 pounds, which is probably mostly muscle, a little bit of, whatever to get up to that weight. But he just brings some explosiveness, and he looks like he's going to be DJ Jones part 2 once he's ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, anytime you get one of these guys with Chris Kocurek, it could be magic right away. So yeah, I'm excited to see it as well.
I think it's just going to take him a little time. He's coming off of a knee injury from last year, and John Lynch. When I heard John Lynch talk, got some really good quotes out of John Lynch from the YouTube show that he did on the Foreigners channel. Matt Miyoko was hosting, and it was him, and it was John Lynch, Adam Peters, and Tariq Ahmad, who was their scouting coordinator, college scouting coordinator. And they were talking about the draft. And when it comes to Kalia Davis, what I heard in the tone that I heard it with is like, we're going to take it easy on this guy. He's coming off of an injury. It sounds like he might be a pup guy early on in camp, or maybe throughout the first half of the season or something like that. But I really like what I've seen in him, and the limited amount that I have been able to watch him.
Yeah, but see, the 49ers continue to do this, and this is what's going to probably make them contenders for a long time, is they continue to add a lot of depth to this team. And that's been a problem with a lot of these teams that go and win Super Bowls or on the verge for many years. Eventually, they just run out of talent. They have a few injuries, and that's it for them. The 49ers are stacked everywhere. It's crazy to look at this team and knowing how good they were last year and saying, wow, they might actually be even deeper this year, which is great because the war of attrition, especially in a 17-game season, will jump up and get you at some point. So the depth that this team is bringing to the fold is going to be absolutely crucial in keeping them competitive for many years to come.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've had a hard time kind of expressing is that I think that, but just like you just said, this team is extremely deep. It's extremely talented. It's important when you look at this draft and these drafts, like, just in general right now, because the Flyers have done such a good job, like you said, of drafting guys that are all pros who they're now are becoming paid as the top players at their positions in the league. It's important that these draft picks hit so that you can get them on cheap deals for 3-4 years, or 4 and 5, maybe in 5 or 6, depending on, the extensions and things like that, how you can keep them on low contracts at the beginning after those extensions and stuff, because that's huge. When you look at this, the entire draft class, if all 7 of these guys make the roster, that's not even $8 million of salary cap. That's extremely important for a team like the 49ers that has so much, that is so top heavy in talent as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And that's one of those underlooked things from the Rams is all these years that they were saying F them draft picks, they were actually drafting really good contributors for many, many years in rounds 2 through 7. So, and I think that that's also what is helping the 49ers possibly close the gap here is the Rams had 0 picks in the top 100. The 49ers had 3, and that's where you can get a lot of your contributors. So,
yeah, and that's you can, and the 49ers I think have done that. You look at Burford and Zakel, for example, the 2 offensive linemen. Those are really nice depth pieces that, this offensive line is going to go through some changes. There's going to be a change at center, probably, for sure in 2023, I would think. I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but in 2023, I think it's pretty it's pretty solid guess that it's going to happen at least by then. You might see a change at right tackle because Mike McGlinchey's going into the last year of his contract as a 5th-year option. Are they going to want to make him a highly paid right tackle? That's debatable, and they already have a guy like Jalen Moore sitting there ready to do it. And one thing that doesn't get talked about very much, and maybe because it's not going to happen, but Trent Williams he has a bonus that's going to be due next offseason of $10 million. If the 49ers pick that up, they're locking themselves into the remaining 3 years of that contract, which have some really big salary cap hits for a guy that's really old in football terms.
yeah, for sure.
And so, is this going to be the last year of Trent Williams with the 49ers at left tackle, just because of the age and the contract and the way that's set up? So
Yeah,
there's lots of questions.
absolutely. No, you're right about that, Jack. And again, it's funny because this conversation came up again today that I was against the Trent Williams signing when it happened. And not because of the player, but because of the way that the contract was structured and how old he is and the fact that he misses games here and there. But now it's interesting to see that, we're a year away from that possibly being a real thing where they don't have Mac or Trent Williams, and that was their 2 major off-season signings that year. And so for me, it's a real concern. But to your point, I mean, they've brought in so many offensive linemen. It's absolutely crazy, and versatile offensive linemen, players that can play multiple positions, left, right, tackle, guard, even some center. So they've done a really good job of bringing in a lot of depth and creating competition. I think competition is one of those things that's super healthy, especially for an organization that has a bunch of young players. Just getting the best players out there and getting the best out of everybody and their development, regardless of if they're practice squad guys or they're long-term starters, whatever. Nobody's job is safe, and I think that's a good thing for a team.
Absolutely. No, it's a huge thing. And it's part of why, I did say, let's get to the season, because I'm kind of tired of some of the off-season stuff. The other part of it too is that when we get into training camp, it's going to be extremely exciting to watch these guys, there's battles everywhere. The quarterback position is pretty much settled. Running backs, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in that room. Wide receivers, how that room shakes out, because I feel like there's some really good depth. I feel like the wide receiver guys group as a whole is much better right now than it was last year heading into the training camp. Their guys 5 through whatever are better than they were last year. Just like the offensive linemen. I mean, they have so many guys, Burford and Zakel, are they going to go and they're going to knock off, the Colton McKivitzes and the schools and those guys and get them off the roster? Like, it's, on the defensive side right now, you have 13 defensive linemen that, 11 of them right now, veterans who could be on an NFL roster, and you throw in 2 new ones in Davis and Jackson. Holy smokes. That's a huge, you just start going down the list of the positions, and it's pretty dang stacked. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And the guys there's going to be some really good players ending up on the practice squad or on other rosters.
I know. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, you could see guys that you really thought almost had zero chance of being gone. Guys like an Ebucom or a Willis, or some of these guys might not end up making this team because of so many players out there.
Yeah, for sure. And then, really quick, I brought up that piece with Trent Williams, and you have somebody like, I saw this a couple of times. I'm just throwing this one up. He says maybe restructure it. And yeah, of course, that is an option. You can restructure. The only thing when you start getting into restructures is you can do it. But when a guy's 30, what's he going to be, 35? Do you really want to put, do you want to keep pushing money out on an older guy who, the wheels are only going to be running, stay up for so long. And that's when you start getting yourself into trouble, is when you start redoing guys at the end of their careers. That's part of what caused the 49ers so much trouble back in the late 90s, was because they were doing that with guys who were at the end of their career, not guys like George Kittle and Fred Warner and stuff like that, who are at the beginning of it. So that's part of it too. And then you start looking at the secondary really quick, and Jimmy Ward and Emmanuel Mosley, they're on the last year of their contracts. And, 49ers just went out and drafted, I don't know how many defensive backs. They drafted 2, but then they signed a whole bunch as undrafted free agents. So we're talking up this draft quite a bit. Real quick, I think you said it, the 49ers have closed the gap on LA, in your opinion?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't, the way that I see LA is they've gotten worse in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Their wide receiving core is different, but I don't know if it's any better per se. And they got a good middle linebacker. That's certainly been a weakness of theirs, is the linebacker position. They've certainly upgraded there, but when you get worse in the trenches, you don't have any picks in the top 100. To me, I mean, it was a 3-point gap. The 49ers had won 6 straight games. Do I think they've closed a 3-point gap? Yeah, I really do believe that. I think the 49ers right now, as it stands on paper, obviously, the best team in the NFC West.
Yeah, I think so. And the only reason why people are questioning that is because they haven't seen the quarterback play enough yet. I think that if you haven't seen it, because they're, the gap is the fact that the 49ers lost to the Rams in the NFC Championship game. Mm-hmm. If Tart catches the ball, if Tart catches the ball, the 49ers have a better chance of winning the game. We don't know for sure, but they probably do, but we don't know. And we do know that the 49ers need to get better. They were only 10-7. They barely got into the playoffs last year. I think that's the other part too that people forget, is it took a win in overtime in week 18 for this team to make the playoffs. So it wasn't like there was they were a good team that started off really, really poorly. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. Just going back to the draft questions really quick. I didn't ask this, but we've been pretty positive on it, but let's go to the other side. Where did the 49ers miss, or what is your biggest question mark coming out of the draft?
Yeah, I think that we're going to go with the same player here. It's TDP, Ty Davis Price. To me, we're going to come at it from different angles, all right, based off of what I've seen you say on Twitter. But for me, it's, yes, you needed a running back. I mocked a running back in every single draft that I did. You need more depth there. Totally understand that. But much like they did at the wide receiver position, they went out and got a player that is not like anything else that is on this roster. To where with Ty Davis Price, they went and got a player who has a lot of similarities to guys that are on the roster and doesn't really do a lot different. And so to me, it's like, okay, well, if this is a depth play, you certainly overshot that. So unless this guy you really think is going to be your day one starter, and that is the expectation, if that is the case, then all right, I'm okay with the pick, I guess. But if that's not the case and he's just a rotational guy, I don't understand the pick at all.
Yeah, yeah. I this is the guy that's a good. I think when you watch him, it's all right. You know, I mean, I don't know. He's he had a really good game against Florida.
Yeah.
But you watch like the Alabama game, and other than one run on 4th and 1 when they all slanted inside and he went off tackle instead, and then got tackled from behind. He was averaging somewhere around 3 yards a carry. It wasn't anything impressive about that game.
And he had a fumble.
And I understand that it's, you know, against Alabama and all those types of things, but yeah, Alabama's a lot closer to what you're going the speed that you're going to face in the NFL than, you know, really what Florida put out on the field last year. I like if I'm going to be positive on Davis Price, the only thing is that he's a bigger dude and he doesn't have very much tread. You know, he doesn't have much tread off of the wheels yet. He's only has one season of over 200 carries. They didn't really use him very much as his first or second year there, but the last year they got over 200. So hasn't taken enough pounding yet to where you're worried about the injuries. And this gives you a guy who, you know, gives you another. He's just like you said. He's another depth piece. He's maybe a better version of what they already have in with Mitchell. You know, he's a between the tackles guy. Going to run people over. I mean, Trey Lance ran people over in college too. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying not to be too negative. The other positive, the other thing that I will say is that we know that Shanahan has had success with a big back in the past. He did it in Washington with
Alfred Morris.
Thank you. I'm starting to blank on his name. With Morris, got a lot out of him in the first 2 years they were together there. You know, wore him down, but got what he needed out of him. So it's to be seen. I get the pick. I understand the reasoning behind it.
For sure.
Totally. I just don't know if that's the guy that I would have taken there. And we'll see how it plays out. If I'm wrong, that's cool. I'll talk about how good he is.
Yeah, you know, the thing is if that same player was taken with their first pick in round 4, I don't think we'd be having the conversation, right? Because we both understand taking a running back. You know, I personally would have gone with somebody like a Ty Chandler, just because he was what they don't have. He's extremely explosive, one cut and go. A guy that when I look at him, I go, that's a Shanahan running back. When you look at Ty Davis Price, he puts the ball on the ground quite a bit. Shanahan is not a fan of that. Like, he's one of those coaches that you fumble, you're done. So that's a bit worrisome. Like, this kid might fumble first 5 carries of his career. You know, he might have a fumble, might have 2 fumbles in the first 35, 40 touches, and then not see the field again. And this is a 3rd-round pick. The interesting thing about Shanahan is every time he falls in love with a guy and they move up or they take it a little bit earlier in what we think they should do, those guys have all flopped, right? And this tells me that possibly they're not as big on Sermon, which means that would also be a flop. So now I'm supposed to trust it again the 3rd or 4th time around, knowing that you've taken guys much later in the draft or undrafted free agents that you have turned into something. So I just, to me, it's like, I know that they develop linebackers really well, right? We've seen that many, many years in a row. So if they took a linebacker at 93, I'd be saying the same thing. Like, why? You develop these guys really well. You get guys late and you turn them into really good players. Same thing at running back. If you're good at developing a position, why are you overreaching for players at that same position? And again, if that was best player available, all right, that's understandable. I don't think it fit either bill. I don't think it fit the most pressing need, and I don't think that it was best player available. And I'll tell you this, Jack, if I had put a mock draft out 3-4 days before the draft and didn't take a nickel corner, an interior offensive lineman, or a safety in those first 3 picks, I'd have been canceled off the internet. But when the 49ers do it, everybody falls in love with it. So it's just an interesting contrast.
Yeah. Okay. So let me address your last piece first, because I think you're right on that, but at the same time, you're right and you're wrong. Because, and the reason I say that is because I think the reason that people were so focused on the center, the need for center, at 2-3, in round 2 or round 3, whatever, was because of the thought that they aren't going to have Alex Mack this year. Mm-hmm. And I think Alex Mack's going to come back. Just my guess, not because of anything I've heard. It's quite the opposite. The fact that we haven't heard it, and the fact that the Framers haven't tried to change anybody's mind that's been running off saying that they think that he's not going to come back. I just have a feeling, though, and that the fact that they didn't target a center in the draft as well, it leads me to think that they know that they're going to get Mack back, and they feel like a guy like Zakel and a guy like, what they already have on the roster, that those guys can make it, not necessarily this year, but can be developmental guys for next year.
Donovan like West as well, that they picked up as a UDFA.
You're right. No. We have, yeah, exactly. We hadn't gotten to the end, that section either. But, and well, I guess let's just stop what I was saying right there, because if they had taken Donovan West in the 3rd round, nobody would be questioning that pick. Nobody would question the draft if they had taken him, right? And they were still able to get him as an undrafted free agent and get all these other guys as well. So we'll see how it works out. I mean, the Davis Price pick, I've taken a running back in the 3rd round right there. Didn't surprise me. The player surprised me. And if he's going to, if you know what, if he proves me wrong and he's better than that I'm saying, and he makes me look stupid, I don't really care.
The thing is that I don't think he's a horrible player. I don't think one time it's come out of my mouth that I don't like the player. I think he's fine, right? He doesn't blow my socks off by any means, but I don't think he's a bad player. It's just he's not enough different, and it was so early, right, mm-hmm. for me to fall in love with it at that pick. So, like I said, maybe if they'd gotten him first pick round 4, I think we would have been like, maybe a little early, right? But the fact that they went 93rd pick, their 2nd pick in the draft, that's really what gets us. And maybe we're all wrong. Maybe teams loved him and he was going to go that high to somebody else. But what I can say is I really liked a couple of the safeties in Kirby Joseph and Nick Cross. And it sounds like the league agreed with me and a lot of us on those guys, because they got picked 3 and 4 picks later. So it's not like you would be reaching on one of those players at a position of need had you taken one of them instead.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's what, there was a few of those guys who, it's funny that they went almost exactly where the PFF mock draft thing kept saying that they were going to go. Specific, in particular, the safety Brisker from Penn State. Every time I ran that thing, he was gone. If I wanted to take him, I had to trade up to about 49 or 48. He was gone between 48 and 51 every time. And that's exactly where he went. He fell right in that range. So there's a couple of those guys. But, I as far as for me, that would be the one that I scratched my head the most was the running back pick. We'll see how it works out. I don't think he's a bad player, like you said, but I just don't know if he's brings anything different to the table. And quite frankly, maybe the Flyers decided that they didn't want to bring anything different to the table with their running back. And they just want to, like I said, we're going to go ahead and we're just going to keep, we don't need our running back to be a home run hitter, because our home run hitter is going to be number 5 and number 19 and number 11 and number 85, because we're going to use the pass more than we've been able to get those home run hits.
Well, and last year it was supposed to be bully season. So maybe this year it'll actually happen.
Yeah, I think so. And that was the other thing too, right? When we sat down, we talked about the draft, and after the 2021 draft, we said this is an offense that's been built to be, heavy against the run, or heavy with the run, and they're going to pound the ball at you, and they're going to run it right at you, yada yada yada. And then they came out with Jimmy Garoppolo, and it was the opposite. And so, yeah, you're right. I think that's goes along with Aaron Banks starting at left guard or right guard, whichever one they want to put him at, and the team having a little bit of an identity change, to an extent. But and then you get into the undrafted free agents, and you've got Donovan West, Leon O'Neal, Jason Poe. Those three alone, I think everybody that did a mock draft for the 49ers had at least one of those guys in their mock drafts.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think O'Neal is going to be anything. It's crazy because I've actually interacted with him on Twitter, and I like him. He seems like a really good kid, but not fast, right? That's one thing. But he misses a ton of tackles. It's like 18.5% of his tackles he misses. It's like, that's not a good combo to be playing safety. You miss a lot of tackles and you're not fast. So we'll see. I'm rooting for the kid for sure. Maybe he's a practice squad guy for a couple years and then can work his way up. But that one, I'm like, I would have liked to. And these guys have to choose to come to you as well. But I think Smoke Monday would have been a better UDFA if he was out there for you.
Yeah.
I don't remember him getting drafted. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he did, but I swear he didn't either.
Yeah. No, I think there was definitely some good ones out there, but I'm happy with what they did, especially,
sure.
And then not only those three, but then also, you look at like a guy like Quantrez Knight, who has that ability to play outside, inside, in terms of the secondary, maybe even a safety type of a player. Sam Schluter, for the offensive lineman from Minnesota. I mean, their picks that they. Let me just stop there. Let me keep moving on some of the other guys. Tate Martin, the wide receiver from Oklahoma State, a deep threat that made a big, number of big plays, and even Taysir Mack, the wide receiver from Pittsburgh, he was Kenny Pickett's main guy.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. There's some good players out there. They did a really good job in UDFA for sure. I'm not mad at it. And overall, if you combine the draft with the UDFA, I really think probably a solid B for me. I don't think that there was many misses. We talked about the one that was kind of but outside of that, I thought they did a pretty good job.
Yeah, no, I like it. I think it's pretty good for the most part. I'm excited to see like I said, next Friday, get to go watch these rookies, go through their mini camp. That's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to seeing guys on the field and be able to talk football instead of just throwing stuff against the wall and hoping that it sticks. I'm really excited about that.
For sure. I totally get it.
Now, real quick, before we move off of the draft picks, we've been talking about for 40 minutes, and we had some other things we wanted to hit tonight. But the pick most likely to start a game or any point this season is?
I'm going to stick with my guy, Womack. I think he's the one. I think he can start at nickel corner.
Okay. All right. So you go with Womack, which is a good pick. I'm going to say we just got done ranked. I think Ty Davis Price is the one that's probably going to be most likely to start. I
love it.
And the reason is because you just look at the running back room. Unless Mitchell, for as good as he was last year, he did miss 6 games. He missed 3 in a row down the stretch in the second half of the season. So it's likely that if Davis Price just stays healthy, he's going to start a game at some point for the 49ers. So that's my pick there. I like, the thing, Womack is also a guy that people have said, people have said might be a nickel. Like you said, I think so too. But according to Adam Peters, they project him also to be an outside guy.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
An outside guy. Hey, and real quick,
that'd be interesting.
Yeah, and we can't stop the discussion about the draft without talking about the
Brock
really.
Purdy.
I mean, if we're going to get down to it, the best pick in the draft, the number 1 pick in this draft, we came at number 262 when they took Brock Purdy. And I don't care what anybody says about Brock Purdy, but I was not happy with the draft until they took Brock Purdy, because that is the only guy on this draft that I mocked to the 49ers, and I mocked him at 262. That made the whole draft for me. I don't want to hear anybody talk about anything else other than Brock Purdy.
I mocked Brock Purdy almost every time at 262 to the 49ers. And the reason is because I've been a Brock Purdy fan for a couple years. I've been talking him up before last year when there was a possibility he was going to come out, I was like, hey, when the 49ers were at 12, I'm like, I wouldn't be mad if they took this kid round 4 or round 5-ish if he can get there. I really actually do like Brock Purdy. And not only that, but this offseason, I was telling my co-host who's a Lions fan, I was like, listen, if you guys can get Brock Purdy, I know you guys aren't probably going to go quarterback early, but if you can just take a flyer on this kid, I think he might be worth something. I really like Brock Purdy, and I'll like him more if that was the ultimate. Could you imagine not Tom Brady, Jack, not the great Tom Brady, not the greatest quarterback of all time, not the kid you trade up and use 3 first-round draft picks and a third-round draft pick, not them, Jack, but Brock freaking Purdy might be the one that gets rid of Jimmy Garoppolo once and for all. How crazy is that?
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, the thing with Purdy is pretty close to what Kyle Shanahan likes to have in his backup quarterbacks, right? I mean, he is kind of like the younger version of Nick Mullins. He's doesn't have the best arm, but he just goes out and makes plays. He has to fight his way for everything that he's gotten, between not being a highly recruited guy to now going at 262 and nobody thinking anything about him. And Adam Peters said that in the 49ers opinion, Purdy played as good as every quarterback in the draft this year. He's just that his measurables aren't as good.
Thank you. I agree. You know what?
So,
You're right. I did tweet out that once they took him, that I forgot all about the Ty Davis price pick, and it was an A+. I screwed up. It is an A+. I forgot to mention Brock Purdy.
See, I saw Jessie. I just come over here. I'll spread some sunshine for you. No, but the Purdy pick was fun. That was a good one. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does throughout his career. I have if I'll share it with you later, but if somebody wants to write a real good clickbait article, there's just one just sitting out there, and I'm waiting for somebody. I'm waiting for somebody to pick up on what that is, because I kind of tweeted it at somebody the other day when they were asking me questions about something, and there is a clickbait article out there with Brock Purdy. I am telling you, I just hope somebody figures it out what I'm talking about. All good with Deebo Samuel now that he's following, now that he's following the 49ers again. Is this all good?
You know what? I it feels good. I'll say that at the very least. And listen, I want to remain consistent here, because I was very, very big that all the social media stuff was a big deal. So if I act as if this is not a big deal all of a sudden, then that would be a hypocrite. I believe that when he unfollowed the 49ers, that when he stripped his social media, it was huge. And it did. It led to him asking to be traded. But now you've got his brother who said that they were going to request a trade, and then it came out a day later that was actually what had happened. You've got him talking about it. You've got Deebo refollowing the 49ers. I think this is a great sign. The biggest deal, though, Jack, is not that he comes back, but he has to come back with a new contract. If Deebo comes back without a new contract, I think both sides of this really overplayed their hand.
No, he needs to come back with a new contract. I wasn't laughing at you. I'm just kind of left. This whole Deebo Samuel thing, we haven't talked for a couple of weeks. So this whole following, unfollowing, I'm gonna follow everything that you say on Instagram and Twitter and all that kind of stuff. It's been the funniest thing to me. And so, like, when you're talking about whether you liked it or didn't, whatever, like how you felt about it, I've thought that my thought on this has never had anything to do with the Instagram or the Twitter stuff. It hasn't even had to do anything with the stuff that the guys like Schefter and Rappaport have been reporting. In fact, when Schefter came out and said a couple of things, and Rappaport said, I tweeted that I felt like they're all both full of baloney, especially with this, the usage piece. I don't think that was a piece at all. It's from the very beginning. This has all been about one thing and one thing only, and that's dollar bills, baby. Give me the money. Show me the money. Show me the money. Show me the money. and our buddy, Sunil, I think I'm stealing this from him, because I think he might be right on this. Is that I think in some ways Deebo wants his money, but he's also working for his agent to help get his agent's guy's money. And Now that AJ Brown's got his money, he's going to get his money. It's all going to be good in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, as long as he signs the deal, I don't really care. Deebo's my favorite player in the league. I started to warm up to the fact that he was going to be gone, but I'm glad that it's not
Oh, I know you
happening.
did. I know you did. You were taught. You had him down the river. You come on, Jesse. You had him. You had him. You had him going somewhere. I don't know where you had him going. He
Oh,
probably didn't have him anywhere.
yeah. I mean, once I mocked him out of here, that was it. Like I'd moved on.
Hey, I got it. I do have since you just said that you're 100% right. I did not mock Deebo out of the 49ers until the end, and I blew it, man, because it was so much more fun to do a 49ers mock after you traded Deebo Samuel and had all those picks that you could play with. Oh man, it was so much more fun to trade Deebo Samuel. So I can understand why everybody was like, trade him, because it was a lot more fun to do that on your mock.
Way more fun. Yes.
In reality, it wasn't. And I do have to say really quick too, you got, some people I don't think understood your tweet, but you were talking about the value that the AJ Brown compared to Deebo Samuel, what the 49ers were offered for Samuel. And you're right. The point value chart that the 49ers got in terms of the offer from the New York Jets was actually better than what the Eagles gave to Tennessee for AJ Brown.
Yeah, it was close because I think
it was.
I could be wrong here, but I want to say Adams, the value he got was like worth pick 13. Hill was like pick 14. Deebo was 15. And then AJ Brown was 16. So it was like they were all right there, which is funny because I remember getting killed and saying, guys, like Deebo's not going to go for 2 first-round picks. He's not going to go for a first-round pick in a player or a first-round pick in a future first. It's just not going to happen. And he didn't go at all, which is great. But the offers go to show you that the market was set, and it was set based off of the Tyreek Hill trade and the Devontae Adams trade.
Oh, yeah, it totally was. And I don't know if I've told you this on one of our shows or not, but if you ask me, I'm giving Deebo Samuel Tyreek Hill money. I think he is way better than one of the things that this whole Deebo Samuel thing did was it really showed you. I'm gonna probably sound like a jerk here, but it showed you the people who understand what they're watching when they see football. Because the people that were saying that the 49ers should move on from him for anything other than the money, I got to say that I got to question what you're watching. Because Deebo Samuel would have been the second highest wide receiver in the league if the 49ers had just kept throwing him the ball. The only reason he didn't was because they asked him to be a running back and he did it. But he is, I don't care, man. I've said this before. I have people that agree with me that I know who are really understand the game of football. Deebo Samuel is the best 49ers receiver since Jerry Rice. And if you don't believe me, fine. If you think it's Terrell Owens, fine. This guy's better than Terrell Owens. He's going to be better than Terrell Owens was during his time with the 49ers when all is said and done, as long as he stays healthy.
Yeah, and you're going based off the 49ers. You're not, you know what I mean? That's a very different conversation. But I'll tell you this, like I was defending Deebo Samuel a lot to some of these other fan bases. You get in these Twitter spaces and you talk with a lot of these other fan bases and they're talking about, how they're going to trade for Deebo and we're only willing to give up this because he's not as good as Tyreek and he's not as good as Devontae. And it's like, right, like I'm telling you, maybe he's not. Like people look at Deebo Samuel and he doesn't produce in the same way that those guys do, right? Maybe he's not the most crisp route runner, but the name of the game is to get the ball in your hands, get open, get the ball in your hands and do something with it. And Deebo does that as good or better than anybody in the league. No question about it. Doesn't matter how it looks. Doesn't matter how it happens. And by the way, you don't have to scheme him open. And when people are like, well, he's, Shanahan made him and he can't do that anywhere else. It's like, is it that hard to scheme a screen pass and let him go for 80? That's a hard thing to do. You're telling me no other NFL coach can make that happen? All right. Like, okay. So yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. No, that's exactly it. That's exactly the way that I come down on this thing too. Yes, 100%. And you're going to see Deebo Samuel, I think, with Trey Lance be a different receiver because he's going to be able to catch the ball. He actually is going to have somebody that's going to throw him the ball down the field on a more regular basis. We saw, I mean, heck, he made Jimmy Garoppolo look good on downfield passes a couple of times last year. Detroit week 1 against the Rams, that was actually a really good throw by Garoppolo. But the deep ball against Chicago, that's just a heck of a job of Deebo Samuel using his body to ball, to ball off the receiver when he went up to get the ball. That kind of stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch Deebo Samuel. Like I said, I put out a mock contract a couple weeks ago. Basically, it would make him the highest paid receiver, and I wouldn't bat an eye if the 49ers gave him that money, just because I know how good he is.
I've been saying since the beginning, 4 years, 100 million, 70 million guaranteed, make it happen. And that was 2.5 months ago. Like, I'm still totally fine with that contract based off of everything that we've seen out there. Yes, it might be a little bit rich in the guaranteed money, but I don't care. I do not care. This guy is that good.
Yeah, I said 150. But I think that the guaranteed money was like 75, 80 million, something like that. The real money in it. Was so anyway, now the other piece here, we got Deebo Samuel. 49ers can't do anything with Deebo Samuel because right now they're stuck with Jimmy Garoppolo. Are they going to be stuck with Jimmy Garoppolo into the season?
Jack,
we got to make this one quick because we have another quarterback that
No, you're right. You're right. Okay, so real quick. So do they have to be stuck with Jimmy Garoppolo? Absolutely not. And if they choose to be stuck with him, that's a problem of their choosing that they could completely avoid and roll over money to next year. So for me, the answer is absolutely not. They're not going to be stuck with Jimmy. Now, are they going to choose to keep Jimmy? I'm a little worried about it, Jack. I I would like to say no, they're smarter than that. But the closer this thing gets, and I know they have to wait till he can pass a physical before they cut him and all that. But to me, man, that's I have a feeling they're going to keep this guy.
Okay. Yeah. Really quick, Emiliano, yes, thank you for getting where I'm coming from. I really appreciate that. In terms of Garoppolo, he's not going to be here. And the reason he's not going to be here is the 49ers can't put their roster together with him there. The deal can't be done. I mean, it can be done with Deebo Samuel. The deal can't be done right now with Deebo Samuel because any signing bonus over 19 million puts the 49ers over the cap. And that's the minimum that he should sign. If he signed a $19 million cap, and I know that David Lombardi and I know his buddy Akash, who retweets everything in his own words that David Lombardi said this too in a tweet, but they're both wrong because Deebo Samuel has a $960,000 signing bonus that's going to carry over to any new signing bonus that the 49ers give him, and $19 million puts him over. So it's not going to happen there. In terms of overall with the 49ers, right now they're fine because we're dealing with top 51, right? Mm-hmm. Right now, if we get rid of top 51, if the season started tomorrow, the 49ers would be over the salary cap. I know they have guys that they can move around, what have you, but Garoppolo is going to hinder what they can do once they get to the season if he's still on the roster. I don't think that's going to happen.
I agree with you, but my concern though is you extend Jimmy Ward and cut Ebicom. There's your money.
I don't think they're going to extend Jimmy Ward.
You don't think so?
I'm not. Here's the thing. I think they should. I think but I don't know if they have the money to do it. I don't know if he's in their budget long term to do it. You start looking at, like we were talking about earlier. This is a topic that we can tackle another time. But like a Jimmy Ward, I really like him. I really like Emmanuel Mosley. But you look at who they drafted: Tariq Castro-Fields and Womack are guys that can play outside corner.
I don't think Mosley's coming back.
They can replace Mosley. I like Ward. Ward's older, but he's really good. But what kind of money is he looking for? Is he going to take a lower end value deal just to stay with the 49ers when he might be able to get more money on the open market? I think that might be why we haven't seen anything happen. I would love to see Jimmy Ward back. I'm just saying, I think that there maybe is something to that in the long run as to why we haven't seen that go down. We'll see. But yes, you're right. There's Jimmy Ward can be restructured. Emmanuel Mosley, if they want to keep him, could be restructured. You cut Samson Ebicom. Samson Ebicom gives you $6 million. Boom, right there. I mean, there's moves that they can make. But at the same time, I think they need to make more than just those. So we'll see how it works out, but I don't think Garoppolo is going to be here. And then really quick, so yes, I don't think they're going to be stuck with Jimmy Garoppolo. You say they will be, so we'll see how that one plays out. That'll be one that we can fight about through the rest of the offseason. And then Kai Too Nice, thank you really very much for the donation. He says, I jumped in late. Y'all have anything to say about Matt Lombardo's comments? Man, dang. We got good guys over here, good people in this comment section that pay attention to what we're saying, or, pay attention to what the 49ers are doing, because that's actually something that we wanted to talk about today. So let me see if I can find that one. And I'm going to bring that up because, this Matt Lombardo comes out. He says that he's hearing that 49ers coaches are saying that Trey Lance is underwhelming. And I'll let you go. I'll let you take this one first.
Every time I see or hear something like this, it's like these guys all act like we didn't see Trey Lance play, right? It's not like he was a rookie that sat all year and it's a bunch of unknowns. We actually saw Trey Lance play. Then you couple that with everything you've heard about Trey Lance through the draft process, before the draft process, after the draft process, from every single person you talk to. Trey Lance is a film grinder. He loves football. He wants to be the best. He's extremely smart. He works extremely hard. So if you couple that with what we actually saw on the field, to then say that Lance is underwhelming or Lance isn't going to be the guy or he's not getting any better, it's been a long time since he's played football. I mean, any of that stuff, none of it makes any sense whatsoever at all. It's going against status quo. So unless Lance in his second year has just gotten full of himself, doesn't think he needs to get any better, stopped working, then sure. But Lance's work ethic and everything we know about Lance, coupled with actually seeing him play, tells me that these are all a bunch of BS reports.
Yeah, that's what I was. Yeah, I was going to say a bunch of people talking from their rear ends from back here. They're talking out of their backside when they do this kind of stuff. I understand it. You haven't seen him play. Why not say something different? You're going to get a ton of interaction. You might even believe it a little bit. It's okay if you believe it. It's fine. I think you're going to be wrong. Is it going to be a smooth road when you talk about Trey Lance? No, I don't think so. I think there's going to be some bumps in the road in the first half of the season, first quarter of the season. There's going to be some ups and downs. But over the course, when you take the season in its whole, I think you're going to see a guy who's going to give you more than what you got out of Jimmy Garoppolo at the end of the day. When the season comes to a conclusion, he's going to put up more touchdowns. He's going to get you more yards with his legs. There's too much to like about him, and to see the way that he and Kyle Shanahan were able to adjust in the Houston game. I know it's Houston. Say what you want about Houston, whatever, but look at what Houston did against the rest of the rookies last year. And this was this guy's second start, not his whatever it was by the time he got against them, right? And I feel like this Lombardo stuff and this whatever, the constant Trey Lance stuff, I am just so tired of hearing about it. And do I feel like he's going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread? No. But the constant negativity is just draining on a guy, especially when it's a guy who, when you watch him play, there was nothing that said that he was going to be a bust.
That's just it. It's like I said, everybody acts like we haven't seen him play before. Like we have to go by hearsay or sources are telling me this, or Marcellus Wiley, my homies in the league, they're telling me that this kid's not any good, and I believe him because they told me Patrick Mahomes was going to be great, and I'm not hearing those things about Lance. It's like, hey, we saw him play. We actually saw him play. You don't have to guess. I promise you, the film is out there. You don't have to guess. He actually played, guys. There are no sources. You can put eyes on it, and you can decide for yourself. But if you left that Texans game and watching the growth, play to play, quarter to quarter, and game to game, and you left that underwhelmed or thinking this guy's a bust, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, because I don't know. I again, it's funny because for me, when I watched the Houston game, if you were sitting next to me, you probably heard a lot of groaning and like, just, I'll be honest with you, throw the effing ball, right? Just throw the ball. Stop doing that. Why are you running? There's no reason to run. The guy's wide open. Why are you running? I'm glad that I finally shut myself down and didn't get kicked out of the press box that game. But, it was one of those things where it was a very frustrating first quarter, second quarter a little bit too. But he figured it out. And when from the end of the second quarter on, the guy was straight up making the throws, making the plays. And even against Arizona, if in both of his starts, I would question Kyle Shanahan's decision making at times almost as much or more than I would Trey Lance's decision making in terms of where he was going with the football.
Yeah,
the game plan against Arizona, the constantly going forward on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 and putting the ball in his hands instead of just running the offense like he normally would run it and picking up those first downs and kind of playing the game like you would with Jimmy Garoppolo. Yeah.
I'm with you. Definitely with you. But yeah, we saw the report. We saw the report.
We saw it. We did. We saw it. And as you can tell, we had something to say about it. Right. So yeah, real quick. That's it for tonight. I think we did a pretty good job of going through the draft. There's going to still be a couple of weeks to really
Did you just say a pretty good job?
It was pretty good. Yes, pretty good. We fought our way through it. We started off slow. People doubted us in the first 5-10 minutes of the show. I know they were doubting me because I didn't even have the right graphic up to start with, and they weren't sure if I was ready for this level of competition and show. And then I had to step it up and make it work. I think at the end of the day, we came out.
It was a little underwhelming. I'm not going to lie.
Oh man, what have you got going on your channel? You got anything coming up tonight?
Yeah, I actually in like 5 minutes I got a call-in show. So think about it as an after party to this show. Normally I do my call-in shows on Wednesdays, but had a little bit of a schedule change. I think I'm going to be doing them Thursday after this show. So yes, call-in show over at Last Second Sports. You've heard Jack and I talk. You've heard me talk throughout the week. Now it's your turn to get your takes off. Maybe you agree with what I'm saying. Maybe you completely disagree and you got a bone to pick. Call in. Tonight's the night. Open mic for y'all. Last Second Sports. See you there.
There you go. And then before I take off, make sure you get over to Jesse's channel as well. But like Bolivar said right here, we made the adjustments. We figured it out. It was kind of, again, it was like, Kyle Shanahan saw what was going on and he's like, hey, come over here. Let's get this situated. We did it. We made it through. And I just want to say thanks to everybody in the comments section who did a great job of keeping us in line. And want to thank you, Jessie, for always coming on here and putting up with my BS throughout the week on Twitter as well. I've been much nicer to you for the last couple of weeks. So, it's been good.
You can tell it's the off season because Jack's not down my craw, like jumping down my throat every take I have. He's like, yeah, I'll let it slide. We'll just wait till the season starts.
Yeah, right. This is the I'll save that for after the show as well. But let me just say this real quick. Thanks to everybody. Thank you, Jessie. If you could do me a favor, hit that like button. Subscribe if you like what you're seeing from us and you're not already subscribed. Hit that subscribe button. Jessie and I are together every Thursday, but I have stuff that I'm putting out all the time as well. And also good to 49ers.pressdemocrat.com and check out all the writing that I'm putting together over there. So thanks a lot, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Enjoy your weekend as well. And we'll be back next week. Take care, everybody.